Hello everyone and welcome to the showdown between the Skaven, who are going to be led by this Grey Seer swinging about on his bell, and the High Elves, who are going to be led by Teclis. So guys, I had been playing against the Skaven quite a bit, and been facing off against them with the Dinos and the Lizardmen and the High Elves, pretty much everyone. And I hadn't been playing a lot of Skaven myself, but the way I was able to deal with the Skaven was using flying units. I was using Phoenixes to drop bombs on them because the Phoenix bombs from the Flamespire Phoenix do a ton of damage against Plague Monks and lightly armored units. On top of that, the Pterodons from the Lizardmen do very good damage, the ones with the Fire Leech Bolas. So, I kind of thought that was the way to take down the Skaven, and I still think it's very effective against them. So to counteract that, I decided to try out the Grey Seer because he has some really good abilities, and every time I just see him there, he gets some really good hang time there for sure. It's quite funny, but he does have some really good abilities against flying units. So you bring the Howling Warp Gale. So this is an ability with the Lore of Ruin. It costs 6 wounds of magic, and it basically locks them in place for 19 seconds, which is really going to allow your skirmishers and your gutter runners and other units to just do huge damage. On top of that, he does have an item, and let me find this here for you guys. It is called the Warp Storm Scroll. So this does pretty good damage against flying units, but it also slows them greatly. It takes away 50% of their speed. You only have one charge of this, but if you layer this with the Warp Storm, the Howling Warp Gale, Howling Warp Gale, they're not really going to be able to get away from your skirmishers. It's definitely very powerful. So give this a try, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Aside from that, I do have some Rat Ogres. You definitely need these guys against Silver Helms and Dragon Princes. They just give you some decent mass to really protect your Lord. Over here, we do have a personal escort, this Assassin, and the Skaven Assassins are really strong. Firstly, they do have Trophy Heads, which is very similar to Quick Head Taker, lowers melee defense by 45, and 26 melee attack, which is very powerful on its own, especially against Krokgar. So the big problem with the Grey Seer on this Screaming Bell right here is that he's very squishy. You can get Krokgar hunting him down, you can get Carnosaurs, there's a lot of things that can really pressure him, and in this matchup you can get, just Star Dragons and just all kinds of madness. So having an Assassin who applied the Trophy Heads on the enemy attacker is going to be very strong. On top of that, he also has an AoE Hex called the Rival Head Talisman, and this ability is so darn good. It gives negative 44 melee attack to all nearby units in a 40-meter radius, and definitely an MVP ability. So again, just to protect my Lord even further, I brought Hell Pit Abomination, Anti-Large, Armor Piercing, very good against dragons. It trades quite well. Has regeneration, and when it dies, it does summon some Clan Rats, so definitely a good time for all. So I do have two groups of the Skaven Slave Slingers, a bit of a tongue twister. On the far side of both my armies, they're pretty good for just kind of pelting flying units and just adding that sheer density of fire. And when it comes down to like a very tight game, these guys can actually make quite a difference. They're a pretty fun unit. Two Gutter Runners over here, like I mentioned before, one Plague Claw Catapult to deal with Swordmasters of Hoeth, Archers, all that kind of stuff, and some Spears. So for my opponent, he does have a Phoenix kind of lurking over here somewhere. Yes, there's the Phoenix. So Phoenix is very strong against the Skaven. Fear and Terror is also, alone very good against the Skaven because they do have somewhat weak leadership. But on top of that, this bad boy can drop some bombs. So for the rest of his army, he's kind of hiding over here in the forest. Probably just wanted to attack me with his Phoenix before he came out. He does have Dragon Princes. He's got a front line of Swordmasters of Hoeth, White Lions over here, and that's pretty much it. A very elite front line, which is quite risky against the Skaven. But if I don't punish it with artillery, it can be very good. Teclis with his nets and other good abilities. He does have a Noble with Anti-Large and Armor Piercing. That'll definitely be okay against my my Seer and the big Hell Pit Abomination I have, and that's pretty much it. So guys, now you finally get to see the power of the Grey Seer. So basically right now I snare him down. So I used the Howling Warp Gale because I didn't want him to fly over here and start getting some bombs. So you can see my Skaven slaves in the forest are just pelting this bird with rocks. And they're doing quite a bit of damage for a unit that costs like 200 gold. But this is where the real business comes in. So my Gutter Runners with Poison, who have 23 missile damage, apply Poison, they just do tons of work. So just check out this Phoenix right now, guys. So he's snared, he's not really getting away, so I popped the Warp Storm Scroll. So it slows his speed by 48%, then he gets slowed by the Poison. So just look how slow, he literally has 34 speed, and he's just being dragged into the mud by these Skaven Slingers and these Gutter Runners. So if you guys have been having problems with flying pests as the Skaven, I definitely recommend bringing the Lore of Ruin. You can get it on the Grey Seer, or you can just bring a Warplock Engineer. And it's such a good hard counter against flying units. Even if you have, like, let's say some Poison Wing Globadiers, and Malekith flies in, or a Prince flies in, or, Krokgar, not Krokgar, he's not flying, but, any big, powerful flying lord comes in, you can do a ton of damage. So down goes the Phoenix, guys, and definitely a good start to this battle. So there's a bit of posturing before our next engagement, so I'll go ahead and fast forward for you guys. My opponent does actually have some troops hiding over here as well. I think he was waiting to Vanguard, but he has the Illyrian Reaver Archers, who are a very good pick. 140 range, very good in melee, solid unit. So I'm advancing right now. I had no idea where he was. I actually thought he was kind of hiding over here, so I think I send my Rat Ogres to kind of scout. It's always a pretty bad time for this Skaven when you have to scout with Rat Ogres. They're quite slow. They only have 60 speed, so they're not going to get around terribly quickly. So while we're kind of, looking around for our opponent, we'll take a look at this Grey Seer a little bit more. So he has some really solid abilities. He has the Musk of Fear, so this comes with the Lore of Ruin, and I think it's much better than the one that the Lore of Plague has. It gives negative 13 melee attack and negative 4 leadership across the entire map whenever you cast a spell, which is so darn good. And like I mentioned before, we do have the dreaded 13th spell, which is pretty good. It does some good, burst damage here, so I'm really hoping to kind of take out some of the Swordmasters of Hoeth. So unfortunately right now he does kind of ambush me with the Illyrian Reaver, so I have to use my Plague Claw catapults, which I'm just shooting like point blank. I did use the Scorch from the Grey Seer on his Screaming Bell and got a little bit of value. So my opponent is going to be advancing out of the forest now, so I'm going to have to turn face and kind of get ready to square off with him. I do have my Rat Ogres over here, and Rat Ogres are such a darn good unit against the White Lions. So you can see the Rat Ogres are kind of scurrying through the water, and they're considered a monstrous unit, so they're not going to get penalized by this water. So right here, they're just beating down these White Lions. They've gotten quite a few kills already. Yeah, it looks like 3 or 4 kills, which is good. And basically, I just wanted to occupy my opponent. I was like, all right, send in the Rat Ogres, get his whole army to chase me. He's going to blob up, because most people, the second one of their flanks is compromised, they grab their whole army and they just force path after that kind of invasive unit. So he was able to kind of bunch him up a little bit and bought me some pretty good time. So unfortunately, the Rat Ogres are still fighting some Phoenix Guards, so hopefully I do have the foresight to kind of move those guys. And yeah, you can see I do pull them back. So he's advancing right now. You can see my Plague Claw catapult is missing pretty horribly, but I am getting some good skirmishing in with these slave slingers over here, which are getting their money's worth versus these Swordmasters of Hoeth. And I do have the Hellpit Abomination coming in, so this thing is just gonna crush all over these guys. And man, look how gnarly that is. What a way to go. Definitely not fun. So Hellpit Abomination does some okay splash damage, and in perpetual fighting, it'll do pretty good. The Noble is a good answer. It does have anti-large, but this thing is just so tanky, and it also does have very good healing. So you can see he gets a really nice fiery ring of Cain across my army with Teclis, so very well played. My opponent right there definitely outdid me. But the engagement's going well. I have Rat Ogres on the appropriate targets. You can see my Slingers are kind of peppering these guys down. In the back, there is a bit of a wild engagement, so I do have some slave or gutter runners back here with the Unholy Clamor. 16 leadership, 18% vigor, and he's just going all in on this this catapult, which is probably not a bad idea because it's going to do some huge damage against his troops in the front line. So he does get his Dragon Princes in here, and it looks like he has 2 groups, but I do have some gutter runners who aren't terrible in melee. They do apply poison, but obviously Dragon Princes are just going to have their way with him. But I do have some spears back here, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I do have some Clan Rat spears, so they do have anti-large and the charged defense, so they're going to be able to hold for quite some time. And you can see they're actually able to rout off those Illyrian Reaper archers with the support of these gutter runners who are applying poison in the back. And the Dragon Princes are actually slowly getting worn down just by all this fighting back here and from some of these spears. So in the main fight, it's definitely going a little bit better for me. You can see a Flock of Doom coming down. My Grey Seer is just kind of riding around on his wagon right here. And this Hellpit Abomination. I was very hesitant in Total War Warhammer 1 about bringing a lot of monstrous units, but in 2 it seems like a lot better. Just look at Teclis. He kind of blends in with other high elves, but man, he just got launched right there, and he has been taking a beating. So I did drop trophy heads on him with my Assassin, which is going to give me some nice kind of attack debuffs and defense debuffs. So the melee defense is what you really want to get down, because Teclis actually has 40 plus. So this Hellpit Abomination is definitely going to lay a smackdown on Teclis if he's not careful, because Teclis does not have much HP. So a few attacks from this guy are really going to be absolutely devastating. So right there, I do also drop another ability, or no, he actually uses the Potion of Troy. You can see my Chariot right here is being supported by all the Storm Vermin, so I did get the dreaded 13th spell, so I wish I could have showed you guys. But they're doing a pretty good job kind of routing off some of these white lines right here, so things are going well on that front. You can see my Assassin is coming over here, so Teclis is definitely in the wrong neighborhood. He's going to be getting hit by this Assassin as well as this Hellpit Abomination. In the back line, I was able to kind of secure, and honestly, these Skaven Slave Slingers are so good. I mean, they just pepper, they're just annoying, and even though they only do 10 missile damage, I mean, look how many of them there are, and that's a lot of volume. That's going to add up and, really be able to drag people down. So we're getting some decent fire right here, but you know what? I bet they have really low accuracy. I wish that was kind of a stat. I think that would be really cool for kind of a differentiating between missile units, if you could see their accuracy stat. So over here, I do have my cannon crews coming back. I have some gutter runners here, so I should be able to kind of drag these Dragon Princes down. You can see the Clan Rat Spears just being true patriots of the Skaven, doing some pretty good work here, and they're also getting pelted by slaves. Definitely a very undignified way to go for the mighty Dragon Princes. But in the main fight, let's go ahead and take a look. You can see the Plague Monks trading very evenly. Honestly, the Plague Monks are just, even against armor, I think they're a good pick. I mean, they have very good weapon strength. They of course, they do have that physical resist, so very similar to kind of like Flagellants and units like that. 15%, it's not the most, but still, it adds up, and they seem to trade pretty evenly with these white lines. I think white lines will obviously win 1v1, but in just like a numbers game, they seem to do pretty well, especially with the support of the Lore of Plague, or Lore of Ruin, which is going to perpetually be debuffing the melee attack in white lines. So the Plague Monks are chasing over here. He still does have a pretty decent little pocket, but you can see my Assassin has kind of surrounded his guys. Teclis has already fallen. I wish I had showed you guys that, but I'm pretty sure the Hellpit Abomination. Yeah, there he is. Teclis just got beaten into the ground by this Hellpit Abomination, which is definitely doing some pretty good work, just going after the high-value targets. And it looks like that's going to be all she wrote for the High Elves. So definitely quite a bit of fun. I really like this Gray Seer on the Screaming Bell. You get a lot of good utility. You're getting that just constant buff to your vigor. You also are going to be lowering their melee attack with the Lore of Ruin trait. He's really strong. The Howling Warp Gale, as you guys saw, was a huge game-changing factor. You know, normally you can fly over the Skaven with relative impunity with the Phoenix and just bomb and just laugh and cackle as you're doing it while the rats are getting roasted. But if you have the Howling Warp Gale and that scroll that I brought, it's extremely punishing and you are not going to be able to get away very easy. But aside from that, definitely like the army. You need to get some big protectors. You need the Hellpit Abomination, you need the Rat Ogres. Because had he brought like a Prince on a Star Dragon or like a Teclis who is just going to be chasing me down, you need guys that can peel and just really lay a beating on anyone that's pressuring you. So that's kind of the idea with this build. For my opponent's build, I like the white lines. I'm a little bit hesitant to go with Swordmasters because they are very expensive. They do cut through Skaven like butter, like very efficiently, but they are vulnerable to, you know, monstrous units. So Hellpit Abomination, Rat Ogres, the Plague Claw Catapult. All of these things tend to do very well against those guys. But other than that, you know, the Phoenix could have been good, but unfortunately it did get caught out a little bit with that Warp Storm. A lot of people don't expect that. So definitely a little bit of a surprise pocket sand right there. So very well played to my opponent, Fascinate. Look forward to running into you again on ladder. And hopefully you guys enjoyed that Skaven showdown. Have an excellent night and take care.